All right, let's do this interest rate spreadsheet. Fairly simple. Follow along with me. This first one in this yellow zone here, we want to figure out what our monthly payments are going to be if we take out a loan. Because this is similar to a business. You know, when a business wants to take out a loan, again, if interest rates are low, money is cheap. So here we want to figure out for, like, say, for you, want to buy a house, $600,000, 5% interest at 20 years to repay. What's the monthly payment going to be? So the interest rate is a key function of this particular formula. So I'm going to click here in B6 and I'm typing in, I like to type in my formulas, PMT, open paren, doesn't have to be uppercase, but so the first thing it wants when it does the PMT is rate, NPER, which is basically the time unit, number of period it stands for, and the PV, the present value, what we were taking the loan out for. So the interest rate is here, 5%. All of these financial functions are set for yearly values, but of course, when you buy a house, when you take out a house loan, you take a monthly payment to repay your loan. So you got to divide this by 12, the interest rate. Comma separates the different parts of it, and then you can see NPER is in bold here. So it kind of helps me create this thing, and that's always time. What's the time value in this financial formula? And this is 20 years. And again, we don't have 20 monthly payments. We have basically 12 months for the 20. So B4 times 12 is my number of payments, right? 240 really monthly payments in a 20-year loan. And the last part is PV. What's the present value? What are you getting the loan out for now? You're getting a loan out today at $600,000. You're going to be paying it back over time with this payment. So I close my paren and enter, and you can see it's $3,960, right? It's a negative number because in financial terms, it should be a negative number, right? You're paying money out. You're getting in the $600,000 to buy the house, but you're paying out the $3,000, $3,960. And the thing with interest rates are, this is what basically the Federal Reserve is trying to slow down the economy right now. They are slowly raising interest rates because if the monthly payment is a little bit higher, you may not be able to afford this house depending on your budget. So if interest rates, like say, go up to 6%, so 0.06 or 6 with a percent sign does it, you can see it goes up fairly a good amount, right? It goes up over $300. And that could be over people's monthly budgets, and you wouldn't want to borrow money if that's the case. Or if you're a business, this is the same thing if you're a business borrowing money and you want to repay it. So again, if you look at interest rates at 8%, which would be catastrophic, but this is what would happen if there's a big inflation problem, and why the Federal Reserve right now is worried about inflation. If it's 8%, no, that's $5,000 a month interest rates. And back in the 1980s, which of course you don't remember, if you were going to buy a house, a lot of times it would cost you 13% interest because inflation was out of control, and it's a $7,000 a month payment. So I'm just going to undo here and go back to my original one. 5%. I think it's actually right now around 3.5% or something, but why don't we leave it at 7%? Please. So when you do your spreadsheet, do the formula, make sure I see the monthly payment. So the next one with interest rates, the future value. So this is basically you're saving money and you want to see how much money you'll have when you retire. So in this one, we're looking at you're putting in $5,000 a year into your savings account. That's why it's a negative number, right, with parentheses. 40 years till you retire at 5% interest rate again. So how much money are you going to have when you retire? It depends on the compound interest you make, right? Because you put money in the bank, it makes interest every year, and then you get interest on that interest payment. So that's like a compounded interest. So this is your FV function, future value, open paren. And again, rate here is, of course, the interest rate. Notice this is yearly contribution, so I don't have to divide by 12. If we're doing monthly contribution, then we'd have to divide it by 12, but I'm just making this one kind of simple. So again, comma, and then NPER lights up next. Again, that's always the time part, and again, 40 years until you get that, hit the beach house in Florida. Comma, the PMT, how much you're paying into it. The next one is optional. Notice that's why they have these little brackets around them. But PV, if you've already saved money in the bank, that could be another cell. Like say you have $30,000 in the bank already making interest. That would be your, basically the PV part here, but I don't have it in this function, so I'm not going to put it in. Close my print and enter, and you can see you're going to have $603,000, right? So just get a $5,000 for 40 years. But a lot of big investors would say that's, you're making a terrible return on your investment at 5%. You're not really risking your money. So if you look at a fairly, again, there's all kinds of investment ideas in the world nowadays, and some real estate investments, like say they would pan out, like say at 9%. So if I do 9% here, boom, 1.6 million, almost $1.7 million. You can just click on do. 5%, 603,000. 9%, $1.689 million. So it's a big difference with interest rates. So this is why a lot of people that are saving money now kind of like the interest rates going up, because it will raise the interest rates for a lot of different investments. But again, still, for some people, this is chump change, right? Harvard last year, again, somebody with a lot of money gets more choices with investment, and Harvard has billions of dollars in their investment fund. Their alumni give them every year. They made, which was a bad year for them, 12% rate of return. And if you look at the difference here, $3.8 million. So this is comparing rich people to poor people in a way. And again, why the wealthy have an advantage. Because if I make it, again, back to the 5%, which would be fairly good for some people, you get $603,000. But a wealthier person, especially again, if you got $20 million, a lot of different investment funds will basically kind of guarantee you a 12% rate of return on money. There are a lot of different things you can do if you have a large amount of investment money, games you can play. Yale, actually last year, made 19% interest for their endowment fund. They were laughing at that. Harvard, and again, over 40 years, that would pay $27 million. There was a hedge fund guy, I'm playing around too much here, probably have to expand my column, that for years was making over 25% rate of return, right? And of course, that makes it too big of a column. That's $150 million. But again, a fairly safe, secure investment would pay around 7%, right? And again, gives you about $1 million, $5,000 a year. But again, hopefully you contribute more and more every year as you make more money. But again, all depends on the interest rate. We'll work a few more years. Like say you work 45 years instead of 40. Boom, makes a huge difference, right? $500,000. So this is why a lot of people put off retiring at the present time and trying to take advantage of these higher interest rates. All right, next one down, looking at investments, right? So this is a company that's looking to invest money and sell what? A17, they got $100,000. This is what they're investing in. So this can be a lot of times a product line, a specific company, somebody's dreamed up, you want to start a company up and you want to borrow money. So you figure the first year, $9,000, $9,500 goes up and up and up. And at the end, it's going to be worth $75,000. Is this a good investment or not? So again, the interest rate here is a really high one at 15%, because a lot of companies set an interest rate where you basically, your rate of return on these future dollars have to beat a 15% rate of return. So what you have to do is, you just can't sum up these numbers, right? Like, you don't have to do this, but I'll do it. Just try it. If I sum up from year 1 to year 5, right, it comes up to $129,000, right? So boom, I'm making money off that $100,000 investment. But these future dollars, again, year 1, year 2, these are years in the future, aren't worth the same in today's dollars. So I'm going to delete that one out. So what we have to do is we have to put these future dollars, discount them, what it's called, in today's dollars using some interest rate. When here the company has said 15%, you've got to beat that rate of return. So this is NPV, net present value function, open paren. First thing it wants is the rate at 15%. Again, some companies have very specific rates of return you have to beat or match. Right, comma, and then just the future values, right? Not including the initial investment, just the future dollars. And then I close my paren and enter, and boom, this is a bad investment, right? So it's this 74,000. This is not beating the initial $100,000 investment. So again, if I sum up these things, it comes up to $120,000. But when you put them in today's dollars, discounted interest rate, it doesn't beat it. If the company had an interest rate, internal interest rate at like say 8%, would that beat it? Yeah, it's getting close. Let's make it 6%, then it should make it 6%, boom, then it's basically, it's a good investment. If this is the rate of return you have to beat. If you actually want to see the exact rate of return for this investment, ROI, rate of investment, it's this, this IRR function, internal rate of return, except I gotta do an equal sign, equal IRR, open paren. This one you want to include the $100,000, so it starts in A17 all the way out to F17. Close the paren and enter. So it makes 7%, but of course, with the interest rates, you always got to increase the decimal place, right? 6.582. That's what it's making. So its original investment is making 6.5% interest. Not the best for large companies. So again, all depends on the interest rate. One last thing, the money multiplier. This we'll talk about later, how the Federal Reserve creates money. Because they decide how much a bank should have in reserve for every deposit, right? If I go in and deposit, say $100,000 in the bank today, the bank will loan out most of that money, but they won't, they'll have to keep a certain amount on tap in the bank, and it's around 11%. Let me change this to 11%. Because to make sure everyone has basically sound banks, right? You know your bank is sound. If I want to go get money from my bank, get cash out of it, they'll have it. So they can't loan out all the money. The government basically tells them they have to keep 11% in reserve. So what happens is, again, banks will loan out as much money as they can, but they can't loan out over the reserve requirement. So here, this bank, if I gave them $100,000, they could loan out basically $89,000 and have to keep the 11%. So how much money is actually created in the system, and this is a big thing, as we'll talk about later in the semester, this with the Federal Reserve, because when banks loan out money, basically that money doesn't stop there. I loan it out to buy a car. Basically, it filters down through the economy because the car dealer who gets the money, basically that check, when I give them the money for my car, they put the money in the bank, and then that bank loans it out again, as much as it can to this 11%. So it's actually, when the Fed puts money into the system, it puts in money depending on the reserve rate ratio. So the way this formula works, it's, excuse me, it's the money injected times, it's kind of a simple formula, 1 divided by the reserve requirements. So it actually creates the $500,000 the Federal Reserve puts in the system creates $4.5 million in the system. And this has actually been going on today in China. China is the same, basically, central bank, and they have a reserve requirement ratio. And the Chinese economy is suffering because of the U.S. Tariffs. So they want to basically stimulate the economy, put more money into the system. So they've lowered their reserve requirement. I think they've lowered to around 7%. And you can see it just increases the money created $7 million. And again, this is money in the system where people will buy things and keep the economy going. So it's a fascinating world, but please do this spreadsheet. I don't think it's too hard. I will look forward to grading them and looking at your forms.